a nice Italian girl. So, been kind of throwing it around in my mind a little bit, but I've heard the saying, how about you find yourself a nice Italian girl? Settle down with a nice Italian girl. And it's kind of weird that I've heard that saying a couple times and seen it in videos and such like that, talked about. Had a friend and his mom were of an Italian descent, and he knew how to cook. He knew how to use his herbs and spices, and they're really good cooks, to be honest. And it's more of a European tradition on how to cook a lot of these Italian meals, and even a lot of the Americanized meals are Italian. And there's words that we use here in America that are Italian too, like menu. If you look it up in the language, speaking Italian, menu is actually spelled the exact same way as we spell it here in America. Mind blowing, right? I bet a lot of people don't even know that. And so is pizza. Pizza is literally an Italian word. The way that we pronounce pizza here is the same way that Italians pronounce it over in Italy. So, I've never been one to really go exploring in the Europeans or anything like that. Never gone overseas, across the pond, whatever you want to call it. It's part of my English in me. So a little bit about me. I mean, I do have some European descendants and stuff. I think a lot of us do. A lot of us don't really know how to pinpoint it though, because we're such a huge mix. Our family descendants, whether we had adopted grandparents or adopted parents, and we were adopted into their family, we don't really know, So I mean, there's a variety of situations that could happen with that. And I guess a small piece of family history for me, because this idea of traveling to another country across the ocean has been on my mind for a while. And here's some family history, though, that I wanted to share with you guys. My grandfather and my great uncle, technically his brother, I would call him a great uncle, they served in World War II in the Air Force. And their job was overseas for about 4 years. When the war had approximately started, I think it was in about 1945. I don't really know the exact date when they left, but World War II. They enlisted in the Air Force and went overseas. They were stationed over in Africa or South Africa, somewhere in the desert right off the coast of Africa. And they had a job where they needed to load about 100 to 150 pound bombs for the B-17 bombers. If you guys are familiar with any of the World War II aviation, any kind of the planes and bombers that were over there and went over there. So they loaded them up. That was their job. They never saw any action. They never killed anybody. They saw a lot of action from their home base. My uncle took an account in a journal about what he had wrote about in his experiences, and the way that he wrote it, it almost made you feel like you were there, as if you were experiencing it firsthand. And he had just a beautiful way of writing it for what he wrote. I even have a copy of it. It's pretty much a family heirloom. I don't know if it's on here on my shelf or not, but it explained a lot of what had happened during the war and what had happened to the soldiers and such. They had seen a lot of action on their airbase, from airplanes taking off and crashing, or airplanes crash landing on their bases, jeeps getting shot at and blown up. They had their base attacked a couple times. My Uncle Jack said that one of the scariest times in his life during the war was when they were stuck in the foxholes. So they would dig foxholes to dodge the bombs when they were getting bombed by the Germans. And they had to hide it out. And if a bomb hit them directly, because the foxholes were only so big and so deep, if a bomb had actually flown in there and got them, it had to have hit them like precisely. to even blow up the foxhole, but it would kill everybody in the hole. So anyways, my grandpa was there with him too. And funny enough, as the war was starting to weed itself out, they ended up traveling by foot or air. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they ended up somewhere over in Italy when they were clearing out after the war was starting to dissipate. It was, that one Italian guy that was on Hitler's side. They were clearing out, the soldiers were clearing out, the Germans and the Italians or something like that. And they had to do a walkthrough through the country, and they said that the Italians were some of the nicest people that they'd ever met. They were very grateful that the American soldiers were there in trying to help this tyrannical ruler, this raid that was going on in World War II. And so, with that, they had gotten a lot of supplies from what I remember reading in his journal. They were very, very gracious, very thankful, very, very kind people. Just the craziest thing. And then, after that, they came home, started a new life. It's kind of the short of it, so. A little more family history was that my mom went over to Italy and stayed there for a couple weeks. She just packed up and traveled, stayed, at the time when she was traveling, it was very low income housing, I think. So, I mean, she was able to stay in a 2-bedroom with a friend or something like that. I don't really remember off the top of my head. She told me, I'll have to ask her about it again, but it was very cheap for her to stay there and live, and she went and saw all the sights. She went to Rome. She saw the Leaning Tower over in Italy. It's just kind of crazy. I've just had this idea in my head, and that's the end of that story as well. And so I've just kind of had this idea in my head, well, if it's in my blood, I think I'm going to go to that country. I think I'm going to go travel there. And I'm going to experience the sights, sounds, and see the great monuments over in Italy. I think that'll be my first trip overseas. I think that's where I'm going to go. I don't know, I've always had this desire. I don't know when I'm going to go, but I think I'm going to go. And I think it would be a great experience for me. Just to go out in life and see and experience life. I'm not getting any younger, that's for sure. I've never really been one to pack up and travel or go off and just camp out for 3 days by myself, using a hammock or in a tent and pitch it right by a creek or a river. I did do a lot of camping growing up. I mean, I live in the Northwest. We're pretty known for that. You got to be kind of outdoorsy to really exist here and just live, and have that kind of persona in a sense. But when I was younger, I mean, in high school during the summer, after school, I would go out to the river and I would hang out, just pack up my stuff, pack up my gear, maybe even a fishing pole and just trunks. Go out there, spend the rest of the day out there just swimming, hanging out, fishing, hanging out with friends, having a good time. And I mean, it was just one of those things where that would be probably one of the random times where I would just pack up and just go and be gone for hours and then come back home later at night, 10, 12 o'clock. I mean, it was late for a kid when I was a teenager, so. But, And so I guess as for meeting Italian women, I don't know, that would be kind of interesting too, I guess, if I go through with this expedition to go to Italy. So I have a feeling that the people that I would meet there would be very intrigued by me and my American ways and my culture. So meeting a nice Italian girl, that would be interesting. A nice Italian girl. They'll know how to cook. Could cook with them, because I love to cook. Who knows, maybe she could show me a couple things. How to make food taste exquisite. So, alright, with that, guys, just had this idea in my head. If I decide to go on this expedition, I'll go, and I will film it. So, but I don't know when I'm going to go. Future can only tell. So, we'll see how things go. Alright, you guys have a great day. Enjoy the sun.